Welcome, everybody. This is an intimate setting. Yes. And the Olympia Downtown Alliance is sponsoring this tonight, and I think everybody knows that their job is to serve as a catalyst for downtown prosperity, positive perception, while advocating for businesses and property owners. And that's who we kind of have here tonight: businesses, property owners, people that work downtown and care about the race. So I want to thank the candidates for coming in advance, because you know, it takes a lot to step out, right? And do all this campaigning. And so regardless of how you feel about the different issues we're going to talk about tonight, my name is Todd Monahan, and I'll facilitate, not Jerry Springer. So don't throw chairs and moan and groan or clap during the responses, but please honor them and for their service and the willingness to step in and try to serve. Now, the ODA advocates for downtown, wants to support and clean, safe, and welcoming environment, improve the image of downtown, all these things, that economic development, working with the businesses for the health of those businesses. And the questions tonight were put to members of the ODA, and they selected those. So candidates, I'd like to remind you, don't kill the messenger. I'm here to pose the questions to you, and some of them are probably tougher than others, but the neat thing about downtown is people care a lot. They care a lot. If they didn't, people wouldn't get so upset over some of the issues, right? And we wouldn't have that emotional response that we see sometimes. So we're here tonight to find out how would the different candidates handle the situations and really their vision for downtown. Does that all make sense? The format tonight is they'll each introduce themselves. They have 1 minute. This is an exercise in brevity, and the 30 seconds will come out very quickly after that. I'm just about ready to get 30 seconds, aren't I? Then when we ask a question, they'll have 2 minutes. Just 2 minutes to respond to that question, and there isn't any back and forth. It's just, and we'll just kind of rotate through the candidates on the questions as they come up. And there's no back and forth, so they'll give you 2 minutes. And because we're a pretty small group of candidates and a small group of people, I'm sure afterwards, if you wanted to follow up and they have time to stay, and you can follow up. Okay? Anything else I've forgotten, Todd? Am I okay? Okay. So we will start, I'm going to start at the opposite end of this row. Oh. So Danny, would you like to introduce yourself?
Do I stand up?
It's your choice.
All right. My name's Danny Madrone. I'm running for position 3 of Olympia City Council. That's the one that's being vacated by Nathaniel Jones in his bid for mayor. I arrived in Olympia 15 years ago, and I always mark my anniversary of moving in this town with Fall Arts Walk, which is this weekend. Because even though I got here a little bit before that, that's when I knew that experience downtown. That's when I knew I had found a really good place to live. I love downtown Olympia. I love the artwork. I love the local shops. I love the restaurants. And I love seeing all the new building that's going on. I've been a big advocate for urban density. I think it's really important that we have a good, healthy downtown so that we're able to bring more residents into the area, better access to transit, less development sprawl out into rural areas. Downtown is the heart of this community, and I'm definitely on your team when it comes to having a really great place downtown.
Thank you, Dan. Appreciate it.
So hi everyone, my name is Jessica Bateman. I'm currently serving as Mayor Pro Tem for the City of Olympia. It's been an honor to serve as your council member for the last 4 years, and I'm really excited to continue this work, which is why I'm running, and I have the experience, the policy skills, and the approach I think needed to move Olympia forward. Before serving on council, I served as a legislative aide to State Representative Chris Reichdahl and the Community Impact Director for the United Way of Thurston County. And I currently work for an association that represents community health centers. And I work downtown. I spend more time downtown than I spend in my own home, but I do live over by the water tower not far away. Since serving on council, I've made addressing housing and homelessness and making Olympia a more welcoming and inclusive community my priorities. I chaired and led the Home Fund campaign that's now bringing in $2.3 million a year to address housing. I testified in the legislature for additional funding. That bill was successfully passed. I've advocated for supports and also a regional approach to addressing housing and homelessness. And then I also sponsored our city's Sanctuary City Resolution in December of 2016. And in moving forward, I really think we need to take bold action on housing, and I'm prepared to do that. Thank you.
Thanks, Jessica.
Nice job. I'm Nathaniel Jones. I am on the council now. I have been on the council for 2 terms. I am the challenger running against the incumbent. I'm a guy who has a background in community and regional planning, transportation, land use planning, economic development, public budgeting, and public works. I bring all of that background to this job, and also my experience on the council. I think the message I want you to hear from me tonight is that downtown is owned and loved by the entire community. You're not on your own. I think that we're all here to support you. I love what Danny said about an emotional connection to downtown. I think we all share that. This council is committed to downtown. I think that downtown is disproportionately impacted by homelessness. And those are some of the issues that I'm running on, and I hope I get a chance to talk about that this evening.
Thanks, Nathaniel. Sure.
Hi, I'm Mayor Cheryl Selby, and I moved here 25 years ago with my young family. My daughter's here in the audience tonight. And immediately fell in love with the city and the architecture downtown and all the vibrancy. The first month or two that I lived here was when the Times News article came out about this being one of the hippest small cities in the nation. And I want to reclaim that, and I'm working really hard to do that. I'm the only council member that's owned a retail business downtown. I've served on the ODA board and the PBIA boards. So I have a really good dial on what it takes to be a business owner downtown and what you need to thrive. And I'm hoping to bring that perspective as well as that of being being on nonprofit boards and having served on the Olympia School District, on many numerous bonds and levy campaigns, and as well, I'm the only candidate that's actually worked for the city that I now serve as an elected.
Thank you, Cheryl. Why don't we give all the candidates a big round of applause? So the first question, and what we hope to do tonight is have all the candidates articulate what is their vision, but more importantly, how do they see that coming to fruition? So articulate your vision of what downtown could and should be, and then how will you specifically work to ensure that that vision will happen? This time we'll start with Cheryl. We're going to work our way that way.
Great.
And they have 2 minutes to respond.
All right. Thanks for that question. So I think the vision that we have for downtown is most recently been codified into our downtown strategy. That was a very robust outreach exercise that we engaged with not just the downtown community, but the community at large. And it was led by a very well-respected urban design firm out of Seattle. And so we have that as kind of our groundwork for what we want our city to look like as we grow 40% over the next 20 years. 25% of that growth is earmarked to come downtown, and you're starting to see some of that. I'm really, really excited about bringing that vibrancy of having lights on in windows and having that activity at night as people live here and don't leave at 5 o'clock. So the downtown strategy is award-winning. It's a living document. We go back to it. We tie everything back policy-wise back to that downtown strategy. And so I think that's the vision that we need to hold to. And, we have challenges, obviously, with, with our affordable housing issues and our homelessness issues, but we've also got a plan for that as well. It's not to scale yet, but we definitely have created a continuum of care from street outreach, mental health street outreach, all the way into permanent supportive housing. So I know next year will be better than this year, and 5 years from now, we will be doing great.
Thank you, Cheryl. Todd, you didn't have to give a warning.
She was right there.
Okay, excellent, Nathaniel.
Great, thanks so much. I think that is the question of the evening is, what is the vision? Where are we going? What is the future of downtown? And Cheryl, thank you. I think the downtown strategy does lay it out very well. And if you participated in that process, thank you. We had thousands of people participating. I think we've got a good blueprint in place. I want to tell you, for me, what I want is a downtown that's family friendly. I want a place where people come and recreate during the day with their families. It's enjoyable, it's comfortable. And then at night, we also have a nightlife opportunity as well. It's a place where business is conducted. It's a place where people want to come and want to be. And it serves as a regional hub, a commercial hub, and a place where business happens. I do want to talk about some of the concerns that I have about downtown. The first thing is, though, a line from Dean Jones, in that we need to get the positive message out. Downtown is doing well, for the most part. Man, does it have challenges? Man, does it have things to be addressed? But the message that we need to get out to the world is downtown Olympia is a good place to be, and we invite you in. As I said earlier, downtown is impacted by homelessness in ways that the rest of the community has not been. I'm very concerned that there's discussion on the council now about putting a second mitigation site near downtown. I'm opposed to that. I think that the work that's being done regionally with putting a mitigation site out at Martin and Carpenter is a very positive step. I have aggressive proposals on how to deal with downtown. I want to organize our nonprofits and others who are involved in that in a way that we haven't achieved yet.
Thank you, Nathaniel. Jessica?
Thank you. I agree the downtown strategy is an amazing document. We've received so much input from the community, and it's a really good template for how we move forward in planning for our downtown. For me, when I think of downtown as a vision, I think of a bustling city. Not only having people living in our downtown is it conducive to our environmental goals, but it's also just, as our own community says, it's the gem of Olympia. People have a strong, heartfelt connection to our downtown. It's so unique. The amenities, the Percival Landing, the views. I mean, it's truly, truly unique. So I want to build on that and enhance the vitality of our downtown, build on our arts, culture, and recreation. It's also about having enough ample housing in our downtown. I talk a lot about housing in my platform and in my history on council. It's not only about affordable housing, which we absolutely need. It's about housing in general. It's market rate housing, it's workforce housing, it's affordable housing. We need all housing of all types, and I've been a strong proponent of that. I also think that we need to have employment opportunities for people. Our largest sector in our community is the service industry. People can't afford to live on service sector jobs in a lot of cases. So we need to look at retention or recruitment of additional industries and how we can recruit people to our community and different jobs to our community to have living wage jobs. We're currently doing at the Finance Committee an economic assessment of the different types of industries and jobs in our community. I think that it would be great to have our economic development director actually going out and doing more of economic development work. To be honest, he's been doing a tremendous amount of homelessness work in this last year. All the oxygen has been going towards that. I'm excited about the possibility of a downtown improvement district. I think that having a downtown that's a regional gem, that's a 21st century city, that's a capital city, we need additional resources to be able to do that. And I'm excited about the opportunity for our downtown property owners to invest in our community. And it would also help lighten the load of some of the things that the city can't do and also provide more revenue options for investing in our downtown.
Well, in my introduction, I talked a little bit about my work with urban density, and downtown plays a key role in that, being the urban area for the county. And so, everybody's been here talking about housing, and we're seeing new housing come online. Thank you, Ron. And I think that's fantastic, and really loving seeing that happening. And I'd like to see more diverse options coming on in terms of affordability too, because we need that market rate housing, as Jess said, but we have a part of our population that is not getting their needs met, and it's causing a lot of strain when somebody sees new housing get built and it's not accessible to them. One thing I would like to do to address that with our comprehensive plan is to set some actual targets for how many units we need for different income levels. So at area median income, how many units do we need to fill that need? And then 80%, 60, 40, all the way down to none. And then we can create actual plans around those numbers. Right now, it's largely value statements around affordability. And I think people will feel better if they know that their needs are written into a plan. And things that we can do around that, incentives. I was talking to somebody recently who's really interested in organizing cooperative housing. And whatever we can do, I think we need an all hands on deck approach when it comes to housing. And as I said, it's got to be in the urban area. We can't continue to sprawl out. Other parts of my vision for downtown, a really thriving art scene. I told you about my connection with downtown and that first experience being Arts Walk. That happens twice a year. I would love to see stuff like that happening more often. So supporting some of the groups that are bringing these ideas forward. And also I'm an environmentalist. I work in Puget Sound recovery, and we are a Puget Sound city. So making sure we have a nice, healthy waterfront so that as people walk along Percival Landing and other areas, that they get a chance to, connect to a really good natural environment.
Thank you, Danny.
Yeah.
I feel we need a little applause here after each question. It takes a lot for people to come up and say, hey, here's my vision. Here's how it's reached. So when Todd first asked me to do this, I said, I would be glad to to provide or help provide hospitality for the evening, which is really the role of a moderator here. But I think when I typed it in, it either auto-corrected or I just had a bad moment, and it said, I'd be glad to provide a little hostility for the evening. And so anyway,
Deliver on that.
this next question I'm warning you about, there's perceptions. You all mentioned something about perceptions of downtown. And the stakeholders here for the ODA came up with these questions, and this one's based on perceptions. So I'm gonna kind of read it here as I'm supposed to. So downtown stakeholders are frustrated at a perceived unequal enforcement of laws in the downtown. For example, private property owners face enforcement action should their property not be up to code or standards, yet many of the city-owned properties or even public right-of-ways seem to be oftentimes in disrepair or dirty. And also parking enforcement. Parking's a big issue. We weren't talking about the other issues. It seems to be vigorously enforced for parking of visitors and employees, yet there are recreational vehicles often observed parking past the allowed times or for days on end. So these perceptions come from the ODA members. If elected, what will you do to address the city's perceived unequal application of enforcement of laws, rules, regulations? And this time we'll start with Jessica.
Thank you. So I haven't heard of folks coming to me with city-owned buildings or right-of-ways not up to code, but if that is occurring, I'd be happy to hear that information. I do think that the resources that we have within the city, like the clean team and the ambassadors, is helping us to clean our downtown, but that's one of the elements of the downtown improvement district that I think would be helpful for us to be able to invest more in that type of cleaning of our downtown and beautifying our downtown. As it relates to the enforcement of laws inequitably, I have heard that input from individuals, and I can say that in terms of the Ninth Circuit Court decision, I'm sure all of you as downtown business owners are aware, that has impacted our ability for instances where an individual is unhoused and living in a recreational vehicle, because now they've gone from a parking enforcement citation to it is their home, they're unhoused, and there are stipulations and requirements for us to apply parking citations to them. So that's a real challenge that we're still trying to grapple with. We have that's happening right now on our Deschutes Parkway, and that's actually state-owned property, and the state has no laws regarding the parking in that area, so we're trying to work with them on that. It's a challenge that we have for sure, and I think we're trying to be as responsive as we can with parking services, and we've heard that feedback, and I'm in daily contact with our folks there. So it's a moving target, and it's a challenge for us to administer.
Thank you. Danny?
Well, I would say that the perception around unequal enforcement of laws is partially true. I was on a police ride-along, and there were folks, having a fire under the bridge, and the officer did tell me, if they're cooking food, maybe we don't put it out. Okay, they're not, then we'll put it out. But the rest of us aren't allowed to have open fires in the city of Olympia, and I think it's really important that people know what is expected of them, and that there is accountability around that. And I think we also, and maybe at a certain point, need to reassess some of the laws so that we're making sure that it's something that everyone is able to comply with. I will say about the RV issue, I actually have dug into this a little bit because I have had one particular business owner talking to me about it. And one thing that I have learned, there was a concern about them not getting ticketed. And apparently they are getting ticketed, as they can be, but people just take the tickets off as they come up. And it's actually the legal challenge around the RVs has to do with the Homestead Act instead of Martin versus Boise. There's a court case in Seattle where somebody had their vehicle towed and they were living in their vehicle, and they sued the city over the Homestead Act and were successful in that. So there's a legal challenge with being able to remove an RV, especially if the person is inside it at that moment, because you're suddenly kidnapping too. So we are facing so many rapid changes in the middle of this crisis. I agree that we need to be able to have the same expectations of everybody in the population, because then you just get chaos and people don't know what to accept, and then social norms become an issue. And at the same time, we have to find ways to make it so that people who are struggling are able to survive, and also, allow grace as it's needed. So it's a moving target, and it's definitely something that I will listen to and work on.
Thank you, Dan. Nathaniel?
Yeah, so thank you for the discussion about vehicles and RVs. And I do think that there's a lot of activity in that area right now. We are bound by all of these different legal frameworks that really control what we can do. We also have a relationship with the county prosecutor that is a place where we are in discussion about what sort of cases can Olympia Police Department bring forward and for them to be successful. They have certain standards that is very difficult for us to meet sometimes. So I appreciate that there is a concern that there may be unequal enforcement. That may be true in some cases, but it is some overriding federal legal findings that are controlling a lot of our inability to do what was a social norm in the past. I think that downtown does deserve some special treatment in terms of law enforcement. I'm the guy who was the chair of the public safety measure. The council worked well together in getting that lined up, and we very much appreciate the work the support of the community in passing that measure. The investments that have been made in the walking patrol and in the crisis response unit, some neighborhood officers, the community court, all of these things are now working to the benefit of particularly downtown. I think that we've done some good work in that area. Certainly the ambassadors and the clean team as well are doing good work for downtown. I said earlier that I felt that all of us in this community gain benefits from having a healthy downtown. And so my response to the Downtown Improvement District is I very much appreciate the work of the ODA to talk about the ability of downtown property owners to work with business owners and bring forward a proposal. But I'd suggest to you that it's important for the city to also continue to invest in downtown. One of the areas in particular that I'm interested in is lighting. The PBIA and others have been working on this issue for a long time.
Thanks, Nathaniel. Carol?
All right, this is the joy of going last. A lot of the things you would have touched on have already been touched on, so I think I'll go maybe a little bit different direction with the answer and talk about behaviors versus housing status. I think we need to discern those two, because there's a lot of folks that are living outdoors that are working very hard to get back indoors, and they want to succeed. And we have a vast array of services to help those people get to where they need to be. Then you have folks that are behaving badly. Let's just call it that way. And some of them are in RVs. Some of them are in tents. Some of them are in alcoves. And they've been emboldened to behave in such a way that it is frightening for people. And they're very, very comfortable with breaking laws and going against social norms. So that's the kind of the uncomfortable tension between those two discussions is people want to, kind of put angel wings on every person that's unhoused. And I'm comfortable saying that's not true. There are people that are breaking our laws and taking advantage of our compassion and our willingness to help people. So we want to help the people that we can, meet them where they are, get them to a better spot. And the folks that are just here to kind of exploit our generosity, I'm not afraid of making it less comfortable for them. And I don't know what that looks like, but I think that's a conversation this community needs to have, and it's really uncomfortable, but it needs to happen.
Thank you. It's not an easy question to answer. Perceptions are hard to deal with sometimes. I think we need another round of applause for that. And I guess we have such a short amount of time. You're going to have to follow up with them. We're a small community. You can get a hold of these folks. I'm sure they're willing to answer more fully and do that. Now, we have an opportunity to allow another candidate to join us. So we have Cheryl and Nathaniel as mayoral candidates. Jessica and Phyllis Booth, who is here now, will join us. So Danny, would you mind switching stools? Danny's opponent couldn't join us tonight because of job. Let's take a 37-second break. So the next question. In the fall of 2018, the City Council opened a city-sanctioned campground or mitigation site downtown, in the heart of downtown. At that time, the city stated to periodically review the site and location and how long it might be there. What's your stance on having this mitigation site in the heart of downtown? What do you see for the future on that? So This time, we'll start with Jessica.
Okay. So we've gotten this question recently and frequently. So we stated that it would be, I think it was a 6-month temporary check-in that we were going to do. We are still operating underneath our emergency ordinance for a homelessness crisis. I believe that sunsets in 2021. We are looking down. We don't have a plan. I will just be honest. We dealt with an emergency situation last year where we identified this emergency, and we're trying to do everything we can to provide a continuum of services and supports, including the downtown stability site, Plum Street Village. We've invested in churches that they can help host on their property. What we need is we need a check-in. We need to reevaluate that location. I work really near to that location, and I drive by it every day, and we have seen a reversion of behaviors. I think because it's just been there for so long, people are feeling more emboldened, and it's just become the status quo. So I think it's really necessary for us, and I've talked with our economic development director about that. I think it should come back to council. I think we're going to be having a study session actually soon on the status of that site, because we need to have a plan. Regardless, we have a sunset of this legislation enabling us to do this. So it's in our best interest to do that. This last year, we've been doing a ton of work, and now is the time for us to be looking at that. In terms of the location, I have been on the record by saying I don't want additional sites in our downtown. And that site is currently there. We don't have the resources to get those folks out into housing or alternative places right now. So I think for right now, it's going to be there for the foreseeable future. I don't know how long that is, but I do think that we need to have a plan for how we're going to transition people out and what we're going to do. And the data, Danny has mentioned that in her comments, and I'm really hopeful that she gets on council so we can utilize her on that. There's also working directly with those service providers with different models and our coordinated entry providers. So I think we need to get back to that and move forward.
Thank you. Phyllis, have you joined in, and you're welcome to introduce yourself if you'd like.
Yes, I'm Phyllis Booth, and I'm a near 30-year resident of Thurston County and the city of Olympia for about 24 years. I work as a free clinic nurse near the mitigation site, and I'm there during the day sometimes and sometimes in the evening, and I met a lot of the people that are part of that site, and it is crowded with the tents, but it's something. I think that for the most part, houseless services should be away from the downtown businesses, but they should be close enough to where the residents could come in and work. Some of them do work in downtown Olympia and access the showers and the things that that are available at the senior services. They have, I think, 9 showers that you can access from 7:45 to 9 o'clock. This housing crisis has been coming the last 40 years. And we really need more people to lobby our state legislature. There's, I think, about $50 billion. And if maybe 500 residents of Olympia or 500 residents of Tumwater prepared to lobby our representatives for mental health services, for housing for low-income people, I think they would pay more attention. I've been at the legislature, and there's not a whole lot of people doing this sort of work. Some of our former houseless residents are doing it themselves. I met a former Quixote Village resident who's been lobbying them for 5 years, but we need other people on board. And we could have services for our mentally ill and get them off the street. It's really embarrassing to have our mentally ill roaming the streets. Thank you.
Thank you, Phyllis. You need to come down and have a sheriff with us.
Can you repeat the question?
Yes, I can. In the fall of 2018, the city council opened a city-sanctioned campground and mitigation site in the heart of downtown. At that time, the council stated it would periodically review the location and use of that site and timing. What's your stance on having the mitigation site here in downtown and the future?
Thank you. So that was, the mitigation site was a response to 3 unsanctioned, unmanaged sites that were in atrocious conditions and with all kinds of just horrible behaviors happening in them. So this was a disaster response, basically, was to take catastrophe and disarray and at least try to bring some order
And it's a pilot. We do revisit it. Like Jessica said, behaviors are starting to slide back around there. And so it's very much top of mind with this council that we need to get back on top of that and make sure that folks that are in the mitigation site are obeying the laws and obeying the rules of that camp. We might need to look at different management styles for that. Right now we have kind of like a peer-to-peer management with folks from the Union Gospel Mission being the oversight for the camp. We might need to hire someone that doesn't necessarily have a formal relationship with the folks that they're trying to supervise. I mean, that can be hard. So we need to look at that. We also need to just recognize that every single shelter bed in Thurston County is in downtown. And that's wrong. And it's not because we're doing anything bad. It's because our neighbors in Tumwater, Lacey, and Yelm aren't doing their job. And so that's been really, really one of the biggest challenges for me as mayor was I've got great relationships with all the mayors in Thurston County. They've all endorsed me, but they still are very comfortable with looking the other way when it comes to their own vulnerable citizens and folks that are either on the streets or at risk of being on the streets. And you can go to a lot of county commissioner meetings, and there's a commissioner that represents kind of South County, and he's very blatant with just, it's Olympia's problem, you created it, just send everybody there. And that's wrong. That's wrong. I mean, just on so many levels.
Thank you, Charlotte.
Yeah, so thank you. Well stated. In terms of our efforts to regionalize this issue, I'll come to the mitigation site, but I just want to emphasize this point. I think that the game changer in the last year has been getting Lacey, Olympia, Tumwater, and the county together working on this as a regional issue. It's significant, and we're making progress, and they're bringing their billfold to the table. So good news there. The mitigation site indeed was set up as an emergency measure on a parking lot, a bunch of tents. During Snowmageddon, we lost about 45 tents that collapsed on people. This is not a meaningful response. That is sustainable. This is an emergency we're trying to move through. We need to get that site out of downtown as soon as possible. In my discussions with advocates and staff and nonprofits, in order to comply with Martin versus Boise, we need about 200 sites for folks. At the point that we hit that, we need to close this site down in downtown and return it. We also have learned a lot over here. 115 tents were too many. We couldn't manage it. We have now shrunk it. We may need to shrink it some more in order to adequately manage that site. There is good news. There are people who are getting jobs. There are people who have moved into housing. There are people who have reconnected with their family and gone home. The progress is slow, but we celebrate each one of those when that happens. There is demand for that site. There are people constantly asking to reconnect with community, give me an opportunity to stabilize, let me get my act together, I want to get a job. And we need to be able to help those people. I appreciate Cheryl's comment that we've got a behavior problem and we have a homelessness problem. These are very different. They're related, but they require very different responses. There are 1,700 homeless kids in Thurston County Public Schools.
Thanks, Nathaniel. Danny?
Just mentioned earlier, I'm into data, and that's actually one of my biggest concerns with our homeless response in Olympia is performance measurement. And how do we know that what we're trying to do is getting the results that we're hoping for? And I see a need for that with the mitigation site downtown. I do remember seeing that I thought I had seen that it was only going to be there for 6 months in the literature that I saw. Maybe it was a 6-month assessment, but if we need to be constantly measuring what we're doing to know that it's working. You know, I hear stories of people getting jobs and getting into housing. What do those numbers look like? What are how are incidents that are not welcome downtown, antisocial behaviors, growing in the area? I was talking to somebody earlier today talking about how, you know, in the social service side, we're very good at, you know, figuring out how to manage things within a site like that, but we're not doing good at managing things on the outside of it. I have a very good friend who works in one of the businesses that is right adjacent to that site, and every time I go down to visit him, somebody walks by that causes me to jump a little bit because they're having a mental health crisis or something like that. And not to stigmatize anybody, but it's to be constantly exposed to that. I know that it's wearing down on the people who work there. I've talked about being an advocate for urban density, and if we have less people willing to use transit because they don't want to go through the transit center downtown, I've heard that. And we've also heard from the food bank director that less people are coming to access food because they're not comfortable. And so I'm not as well versed as to what the current status of that site is because I'm not on council yet. But it's not a good location for what is needed in that area. And I don't want to pretend like I have an immediate solution to how that could be moved somewhere else. I think everybody here agrees that it's not a good place for it to be, and figuring out what's next is really important.
Thank you, Dan. Another round of applause for
Can you come Tuesday nights and just have people come?
during the council.
Not during public comment.
All right. We try to keep it under control. I would be Jerry Springer there, wouldn't I? All right. The final question that came up from the group is this. Downtown property owners are exploring, and some of you already mentioned it, the concept of a property self-assessment district or improvement district to fund clean and safe and small business assistance programs in the downtown area. In fact, cleaning efforts would focus on the earlier referenced public right-of-ways that some have talked about, like sidewalks. If property owners support this effort in the petition process, it may come forward to the Olympia City Council for approval by ordinance. It would have to be approved. If that happens, would you vote yes or no, and why? This time we'll start with Nathaniel.
Great. So I've talked with a number of folks in this room about the DID. I don't know exactly what that proposal is going to look like yet until it comes to us, so I'm not sure I can give you the clear one or yes or no answer to that. Very much appreciate the work that's going on in downtown and the organizational work in communicating clearly with property owners and business owners. I'm going to come back, though, to a comment I made earlier. What does it mean that downtown business owners have to focus on clean and safe? And my opinion is that you should be working on marketing. You should be working on enhancements. Clean and safe is not a business owner's responsibility, in my opinion. I think that that's base level information that the city should be able to provide to you. I think the city and the downtown business owners, property owners should be in partnership, but I'm concerned when, frankly, downtown is responding to homelessness and behaviors that are not in your bailiwick. You should be marketing your businesses. So I have some concerns about the direction of the DID because I think you're taking on things that really aren't your responsibility. Although I very much want to see this partnership with the city move forward in a very healthy way. I have two other things I want to say, and I have 30 seconds. So I want to tell you that shelter capacity in Olympia is down this year. We have fewer shelter beds for the coming winter than we had last year. And you better believe demand is up. The other things that are happening is that the community care center is changing its operating model. So when we shut down a warming center in the past, all of that population went to the community care center, and it very much affected their operation. They will not be serving that role this winter.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Sharon?
All right, back to the Downtown Improvement District proposal. It's something I strongly support. I've thought about this for years, back when I was on the PBIA board, and well-meaning group of small business owners, but low-resourced type of program, because it was like $100,000, and it took a bunch of staff time to actually manage it. So the actual dollars that were being put back out into the community were relatively small, so low bang for the buck, low impact. So for property owners, and the other issue is we've always been kind of grousing that property owners need to be more involved in downtown, and those absentee property owners and this and that. And so if property owners vote to tax themselves and bring, hundreds of thousands of dollars to the table, I can't say no to that. I was a little bit like taken aback by the allocation of clean and safe versus marketing and programming, but that's temporary. We're going to get past this, and then you still have that bandwidth that you can shift it back over to programming and outreach and marketing and working with the Visitors and Convention Bureau, and I'm just thrilled that it would be this amazing asset and enhancement to what the city is doing. Government can't do it all. Just saying. So I think, I hope it works that you bring it forward, and I will champion it as loudly as I can.
Thank you, Cheryl. Danny?
So I've taken the time to learn about the Downtown Improvement District. I've met with Todd and I've attended the open house, and I haven't seen a reason to not support it yet, except if you move forward with the segues, then I will. No, I'm just kidding. I would like to know if there's going to be an impact to the renters downtown, the residential folks, because, higher costs mean higher rents. I don't think it's going to be a whole lot, but I think it's worthy of exploration just to know. But, as Cheryl said, more support for downtown, that's a good thing. And if there's already 60% of property owners who are on board, and if there's a good groundswell of business owners as well who are saying, yes, we want to do this, then I don't see any reason why I would say no to that. That's a pretty good indication of something that is wanted from the community. And I also want to say that, having followed some of the process, this isn't going to be something that's just thrown in front of council as a surprise of, we need to do this. There's actually a good process going into this, lots of good engagement. And so hopefully some of the concerns that I did hear come up in the town hall are things that can be addressed, and then even more consensus can be built around it. So like I said, there's nothing I've heard that would lead me to vote against it.
Thank you, Dan. Phyllis?
Well, I have a different point of view about this. I've been a shopper and of downtown for a long time, and I don't think that you should have to tax yourself to accomplish this. I think it would be a better idea to go to the free legislative classes and train yourselves in how the process works, and before that, go to your representatives and identify the problems that are happening in downtowns that are impeding your business operations. I've been out doorbelling a lot, and people have said they're afraid to come downtown. I have countered that with, I go downtown, and I've been downtown for years. I've never had any problem other than panhandling, and I just tell them no. That doesn't mean that other people haven't had those same experiences. But I think we need to attack the behaviors of all the tax cheaters we've had for 30 years that go to our legislature and say, I don't want to pay taxes. $8.7 billion went to Bowen in one weekend. It's atrocious. It filters down to small businesses. They're asking you to pay more, and it hurts your opportunity to be a good entrepreneur. I think you also need to push back and market yourselves as a wonderful place to shop and play, because I've come downtown a lot, and sometimes there isn't any place to park. There are so many people here. So we need to stop the narrative that downtown is some sort of cesspool. It's not.
Thank you, Phyllis. Jessica?
Thank you. I've been a proponent of the Downtown Improvement District. I think if we have property owners that want to invest in our downtown and help us to beautify our city, to focus on placemaking, that's one of the elements that I'm really excited about. Like Mayor Cheryl said, Selby said, we can't do this all alone, and one of the things I'm really inspired by is public-private partnerships. And although it might not be the property owner's responsibility to do this, it sure is impacting your businesses and the look and feel of downtown. And one thing that I know, I work downtown every single day, is that perceptions do shape people's realities. Perceptions can impact behavior. It impacts how people perceive and how they feel when they're downtown. So if we have folks in our community that voluntarily want to tax themselves to help make our downtown even better, I think that's a great opportunity for us. Obviously, I'd have to see that plan. I also have interest in making sure that that's not going to disproportionately impact our business, our small businesses downtown. But I definitely have been inspired by looking at what other cities have done with using their DIDs and seeing the placemaking and bringing people to downtown and telling that story and marketing their city, which I think would be really, really awesome for us to get to. So I'm very interested, I'm very supportive, and I definitely want to learn more and stay with that process.
Thank you. Another round of applause. That's the only interaction we got. It's coming right now. So at this point, we're going to give each of the candidates 1 minute to say the wrap up. Maybe it's something you didn't get to say earlier that you thought of now. And so you each have a minute, and we'll start with Phyllis. You didn't get the front end of it because you weren't here at the time. So we'll start with you and then go through the candidates.
Now, could you repeat the question again, please?
Wrap up.
Okay,
You have
wrap
1 minute to say whatever you'd like
Okay.
about your candidacy or something that you need to bring forward in discussion.
I love downtown. It hurts my heart to see so many vacant buildings. And I think that we need to educate our citizens about online shopping and what it's doing to our local businesses. Also, a lot of my friends are elderly and they would love to come downtown, but they can't walk 7 blocks. They're senior citizens. And we could have more bus service. We have major events similar to the Dash, to where they could pick a restaurant to go to for Procession of the Species or other fun things like the pet parade. And they would be assured that they would be safe. We could have other transportation from the neighborhoods. I really feel like downtown could be reinvented with better marketing and a pushback for the narrative that has been around for about 20 years, unfortunately. And also lobby for more library services because it's closed on Sunday. It used to be open, and that would be another place for families to come down and enjoy the library and go to a restaurant.
Phyllis, thank you. Jessica?
Thank you. It's been an honor to serve as your council member for the last 4 years, and I am eager and excited to continue that service. My priorities for moving forward are addressing housing. I've testified in the legislature for legislation supporting cities. I'm willing to work with the local Thurston County Housing Authority. I think that we should be leveraging our public property to help inspire development and hopefully reduce those costs of housing in our community. I'm also very interested in enhancing the vitality of our downtown as we grow and accommodate 20,000 more people living here over the next 20 years and having a quarter of them living in our downtown. That means we have to have arts, culture, recreation, and housing. And also we need to make sure that we create a plan for reducing our greenhouse gas emissions so we can adapt to sea level rise. As that happens, our downtown is very vulnerable to sea level rise. If you'd like to learn more about me, please visit my website at reelectjessicabateman.com. And thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you. Danny?
Thank you so much for hosting this forum. As I've said all night, I absolutely love downtown. I see a lot of opportunities and a lot of really good stuff happening, and I'm also seeing a lot of really difficult challenges. I think we need somebody on council who is a bridge builder, who is seeking out relationships of people who don't feel like they've been heard. And with some of the stuff that I've worked on this community, I've really demonstrated both my ability to maintain relationships in challenging issues, but also to take a stand when it's important to do so. I've met with a lot of you in this room already, but I also want to just extend the invitation if anybody wants to have a cup of coffee, or if you know somebody that I should be talking to gain more perspective on how things are going downtown. I am always open for that. Very extroverted and friendly, and I love people. I love downtown. I love Olympia.
Thank you, Danny. Nathaniel?
Great, thanks. So I mostly want to use this wrap up to say 2 things. One is thank you very much for this opportunity. It's been an honor to be on council. It's an honor to be in this position, to be able to run, to serve as your mayor. And I look forward to working with you in the years to come. I do want to come back to homeless response, though. I want to tell you that I'm put forward what's called Built for Zero. It is a system that is in place in other communities across the country who are seeing substantial benefit. And it's based on data, Danny. It's all about performance management. Today, we have a whole series of folks who are working on homelessness. We give them grant dollars in order to perform, but they are not working together as a system. that we don't have a common set of objectives. Our coordinated entry system is not working up to its own expectations. We need to retool our response to homelessness in a way that we set objectives, we monitor for performance, and we hold those service providers accountable. We can change this.
Thank you, Nathaniel. Sure.
I want to say thank you for doing what you do every day. When you turn on your open sign, unlock your front door, and you walk into your business, you are giving back to this community in ways that is immeasurable. So thank you for that and being brave. Being a downtown business owner is not for sissies, and you guys are very, very fearless. So with that, I hope to be the champion for small businesses as I've been on the 6 years that I've been on council. The first year I was on council, I got on the finance committee and was able to get full-time funding for our first ever economic development director. We have that position to this day. I pushed, like I said, for the downtown strategy to get funded with a full cohort of professional urban design people, and we've got that in place. We have a plan. We do have a plan for our homeless response, and actually I want to thank Amy Evans for serving on the homeless response coordination team, the cohort that she's in, that are going to bring back a plan for how we're going to deal with this as a community, not just in the emergency mode, but in the long-term mode. And so stay tuned, do not give up, help is coming, it's going to be awesome.
Carol, thank you very much. One last round of applause for everybody, huh? And I'm sure as you mingle out and that, you can ask all the questions that we didn't get to ask. There was a whole slew of them that were on the slate, and of course, you always wish you could answer all those, but that's part of the process. And you know, you all should go out of here and tell 3 or 4 or 5 of your friends about what you heard tonight and about the candidates so that they can get that message out and answer all the questions for everybody in our community. So candidates, a big round of applause for the audience for coming to this meeting tonight.